Hi guys, it's Carter here. I've been asked a couple times to put out a video explaining how to add on the IAE engines to the Rotate MD-80, effectively making an MD-90. I'd like to start by saying that if you don't already have the Rotate MD-80, I would highly recommend going and get it. It is probably one of the best planes in X-Plane to own, so I highly recommend it. To start with, to get this plane with the IAE engines, there's two ways of doing it. You can use the IAE engines from this link that I have posted up on the Discord for V1, and it has the older version of the IAE engines that were previously used for the Flight Factor 320 a while ago. They are still usable. You can still use these. I didn't like them because I don't think the fans look correct, so I wanted to use the newer version, which adds a bit more complexity because you have to move it and rotate the IE engine. So this video is how to use the new engines rather than the old one. You can still use these ones. And the details are probably going to be provided within this download. You still need to download the file from this because there are a couple of files that you need to have. So definitely go here and download this first. Second of all, I did edit the textures for the new IAE engines so to make them better looking. Because of the way they're rotated and how the old textures were set up, it made the kind of the reverser side really black. It's generally where it connects to the pylon that's under the wing for the flight factor. So I changed the textures and the normals to make that just look a lot better. I will be adding that zip file to a link in the description so you can download that and use that. And I'll tell you where that needs to be placed as well. So first of all, what you're going to need to do is go to your X-Plane folder, and you're going to need to take a copy of your MD-80 plane and just make a copy of it. When you've made your copy, you're going to need to get your IAE engine pack. I will try and put a description or a link in the description to where to get the newer IAE engine pack, but it's on the explainforum.org forums. You can have the 2K or you can get the 4K. There's two versions you can get. I just use the 2K. You're gonna need to get a couple of things from this pack. I know there's a fixed version, so you might want to get the fixed version first as well. So what you're going to need to take is the two IE fast, the IE left and the IE right, as well as the three textures including the normal. And those are the files that you're going to transfer over. So once you've got your copy, you're going to want to go into the objects folder. The best thing I always tend to do is just create a new folder and just call it 250 for the type of engine, and then I just copy those over. The other thing you're going to need, which is why I said to download this file, is there are a couple of objects that you need to take out from here. Don't need these. So these objects are actually where the existing engines sit within the MD-80, and what these objects do is just edit them out. So you can do this two ways. You can either just copy these and then override the one that's currently in the objects folder, or you just put it into the folder. I tend to do it this way and then edit the object file from PlaneMaker to just change the location, which just makes it easier and you don't have to worry about overriding stuff. So once you've got your objects in your folder, you're going to need to go into PlaneMaker. And what you're going to want to do in PlaneMaker is you want to open up the new copied rotate .acf file in PlaneMaker, and that'll give you the ability to remove and then edit them. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to open your copy. It doesn't really make any difference of what livery you're using. You can change that later on. The one thing I will suggest doing as well while you're there is the new copy in the objects. You're going to want to open up the textures that I have provided and put that in there and override the 3 that you got from the IAE engine. I just wanted to add in something there as well. One, we're adding in the objects that we got from the pack from this download. The two object files, the MD Cola and MD Cola objects that have the old GT8 engines in them. I said to move those into the V2500. What I forgot to mention is you will probably also need to move in the textures as well. So in the MD rotate objects, where if you find the textures that are related to that object, which are going to be the normals and the PNG for both of them, you're going to want to move or copy them into here as well, just so that they are that they will work for the base model. These won't have too much of a problem when you're using the livery, but it's just a good idea to have them in there, and I didn't mention that in my previous recording. So once you've opened the plane within PlaneMaker, as you can see, it pretty much just looks like what you have. So you're gonna need to do some edits and add some objects. First of all, if you open up standard and then go to miscellaneous objects, and then you want to scroll down until you find those two objects that we took out of the other pack. These two here. So these two are actually the engines and the tail. So you're going to need to replace these. So you can either replace them by overriding, like I said, or you can change the location where I put them into the folder, which is what I prefer to do instead of overriding stuff. All you need to do is just click on that and then go to the folder and just open, and it'll override the previous one to the new one. And then I do the same for the next. And as you can see, the engine is gone. But we still have the pylons, which is what we want. Right, next you want to go and add in two new sections. And you're going to want to add in, the first two is just the IAE left and IAE right engine. And now I'll import the two engines into PlaneMaker. Make sure to change the shadows to all views and the prefill to prefill. So once you've added in the two engines into PlaneMaker, this is where you need to do a bit of moving the engines around. You need to rotate it and then move it back to fit onto the pylons. And we use these to move them, much like you've probably done if you've ever modded the Flight Factor A320. So the two references are going to be 6, 6, 5, 0. For the left, it's going to be a minus, and then for the right, it's going to be a positive. So we need to go down for the left and up for the right. So we need 1, 4, 3 for both, but one is going to be minus and one is going to be positive. And then for the third column, it's going to be 2, 3, 2, 0. And they're both going to be positive. 3, 2, 2, 3, 2. Like so. So those are the positions. Now we need to rotate and slightly move them. If you look at any pictures that they rotate, the engines tend to be at a little bit of a tilt as well. So we need to rotate it and give it a slight tilt. So what we need to do in these end boxes, these are going to be the rotate, and again these are going to be a plus and minus. So the L is going to be, the left is going to be a minus, and the right is going to be a plus. So we just need to move that to 9, and this to minus 9. And then what we need to do is just add 2 here, just to give a slight tilt. And this will give you the engine location. And I'll give you where the reverser moves on the side. So if we look there, you can see the reverser moves, and there's this bit here which is true to life if you've ever seen any pictures of the reverser on the MD-90s. Right, so now we've got the engine on there, we need to add in the fast objects for the fans. So we need to go back into the miscellaneous objects and add in 2 new entries at the bottom. And these are going to be for the left and right fast objects. So again, all we need to do is match the same. So the left ones need to match the left and the right one needs to match the right. So all we just need to do is copy the same. And again, make sure you remember that there is a plus and minus to these, to this middle one and that end one there as well. we're going to need to rotate and slightly angle them as well. So left and left is a minus. We need to minus this. And the right is a plus. Two, like the same for the slight angle. And then left is actually a minus, not a plus. And then right is going to be the plus. Right, so that should put the fast objects in there. Right, let's close that. So that adds the engines in to Playmaker. The final thing we need to do on here is a slight change of some of the engines. This is mainly to change the heat blur at the back. As these IAE engines, they're less dirty than the GT8 engines, so I like to turn down the dirt at the back. So you need to go into the engine specs tab at the top. So we go to the SFC and sound tab. At the bottom you'll see the exhaust dirtiness is at 1.6. We're going to change that down. I change it down to about 0.3. Again, still a bit of dirtiness, but it's not as overwhelming as current. And what we also need to do is just bring the offset of the exhaust back just down to 3, just to make sure that the edge of the exhaust is actually in the engine, not outside it. And you need to do that for both engines. You just need to make sure that 1 and 2, and then you just change that to 3. You only need to do it once for the exhaust, as it covers both. But if you're changing the offset, you need to change the engine from 1 to 2, and then change that to 3. And then pretty much just need to save it then. The only other thing I will suggest is you can go into the author and then just change the IKE code to 90. This might be a bit more handy for you, say if you're coming in to any airports that use SAM or AutoGate, and it will pop up on the auto dock system, MD-90 instead of MD-88. It's not a big deal, but it might break some people's immersion, so it's just a slight change. And then save that. And that pretty much changes the plane to have the engine. There is a couple more things that we need to do, unfortunately. Because these engines were specifically made for the flight factor, we need to actually edit some of the animations to make sure the reverses work and that the fan is working as well. So what we need to do is, now we've finished in Playmaker, you're going to need to go to your engines, your objects, and you're going to need to open all of them in a Word document. The main reason behind this is these IAE engines were purposely built for the flight factor, and the flight factor uses different data refs to trigger animations, where the rotate and the other planes use specific ones. So what we need to do is we need to edit the 4 object files that we moved just slightly so that the rotate is going to be able to trigger the animations with its specific or more specific laminar specific data refs that Flight Factor doesn't use. So what we need to do is you need to open up all 4 of these object files into a text document. So once you've opened up the 2 documents, you need to go and open up the Word document that I added in to the zip file, and they just provide the data refs that we're going to use. So you can just copy and paste from that notepad. On that, the data refs, the 0 at the end, as I've mentioned here, just refer to which engine. So if you have 2 or 4 engine, it just specifically refers to which engine that data ref is specifically referring to. So 0 is always the first engine, which in this instance is going to be the left. 1 is going to be the second engine, which is going to be the right engine. So I've put in a code there for you as well, so you know when you're changing the data refs specifically for which engine you're going to be doing it on. So 0 is always left and 1 is always right for all of the data refs. So what we're going to need to do is we open up the left one first and we just scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see there's a whole load of animation information. There's not a lot, there's a couple of hundred lines at the end. As you can see, it starts about here, just after all this information. The top to do is the DirectX 10. And what we need to do is we need to change all of the sections that say model/controls. And these are the actual triggers for flight factor that begin the animations. And the animations are more specifically the rotation of the blades and the reversers pushing back when you trigger the reversers. So what we need to do is we need to replace first all the reverser triggers. So if you're in an application like this, all we can do is just highlight the specific trigger and then Control F and replace it with one of the data refs. Now the reverse data ref is going to be replaced by Laminar specific thrust reverse deploy data ref. So we just copy that and put it in replace, and then we replace it all. So that's just everything replaced. You don't need to take time of copying every single one. So that one's done, and if we scroll down about halfway-ish down, we should, well, towards the bottom actually, we should see 2 more data refs, and these are for the actual fan blades. So one is the middle fan, so it's a small fan, and then the bottom one is the actual big main blades. So what we need to do is we need to change the data refs. So the data ref trigger we're going to use is the engine rotation angle degrees, and that's going to be 0 because we're using left. And we're just going to highlight that, Control F, and replace that with the engine rotation, replace all. The last thing we need to replace is just the animation hide. This actually hides the blades when you get to a certain level and the flight factor. This data ref doesn't exist within the rotate, so we need to change that for something else. So I've added in the data ref here for an animation hide for triggering for N1 at a specific setting, namely between 20 and 100. So when you have the engine pushed to above 20 and lower than 100, it will hide the blades. You don't have to have it as 20, you can have it something as higher, something like 2 if you want it to only trigger when you start moving the thrust levers up. I believe 21 is usually the bottom. I'm not sure when it comes to rotate what the idle N1 is off the top of my head. I think 20 or 19 or 20 is usually the standard. So you can copy that and then we just paste that over there. And again, 0 is left. And then we can save that. And then what we need to do is we need to go to the right one, scroll down, and we need to do the same again for the right. So we scroll to the top of all the animations and we replace the right reversers with that one there, but make sure this is now a 1 instead of a 0 because it's right, and replace all of that. And we scroll down until we find the fans, and we replace this one with the rotation data ref and make sure that is a 1 instead of a 0. And then finally we need to replace the hide for the main fans. Right, and then we save that. So that is the two main engines edited. The last two objects we need to change is the IAE fast left and IAE fast right. And all these are the fast rotation animations. So like we changed in the animations in the left and right, when those two main fans disappear, the fan for this one then appears, and it's just a different texture. It's a bit more see-through, a bit more transparent. And there's only the one animation here we need to change, so we have just two things we need to change. First, we need to change the trigger for the actual fan, so it's rotating, like before. This is left again. So we use the engine rotation with the 0 and replace that. And the animation at the bottom, we change that with the N1 hide. From 0 to 5. Can probably have that at 20, so it triggers when the other main blade turns off. So all this is saying is between N1 status of 0 and 20, hide this animation and hide this object. Anything above 20 or below 0, make this visible. And then we save that, and then we edit the last one, the right one. And again, I just change that to 1, as this is right, replace, and finally replace the hide animation, and save. So those are all the edits that need to be done on the objects. Once you've edited those, you're pretty much done there. Right, so once you've done the objects and you've got everything set up in PlaneMaker like I've shown you, you just need to run xplane and load it up, and everything should be working. I will highly recommend, if you don't know, I'll put a link as well in the description, to go and check out FTSim Plus, his Patreon page, for the MD-90 IAE engine pack he's got there. It sounds really good, like most of his stuff. So if you want to have some really good sounds for the IAE engine as well, then go and give him some support. I think it's like $5 for his Patreon, and you get access to all of his sound packs, and one of them is this one. So if you want a good sound pack, go and check him out. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, then don't be afraid to send a message in the comment. Cheers.